Yeah, this is recording. Cool. Is this recording? It is recording. Awesome. Cool. All right. So we'll get into it. So first and foremost, thank you so much to every single person that has come out thus far. This is a much bigger group than what I generally anticipate. So this is really awesome. The biggest webinar group that I've ever had, guys, was I think like 50 or 60 people. So my goal is to get these going weekly so that I want to get by summertime, I want to have over 1,000 people on these webinars. I think that'd be something which would be really, really cool. So let's try. So thank you so much to every single person that was able to make it out. I see a bunch of my students are in here, a bunch of new people are in here, so that's really awesome. To all the new guys and you guys, to the people that are joining in, if you guys don't know what I am doing, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through all the dollar index pairs. So these 7 pairs right here, going to be going over just the general structure of the market and where I believe the market is going to move and kind of what happened last week. And then from there, any other questions that you guys have after the webinar and things of that nature, I'm more than happy to answer. So with that, let's get right into it. If you guys cannot hear me, please let me know. Otherwise, you guys should be all good to hear me. And so, yeah. With that, the recording is going, so I will be uploading this to YouTube. So if you guys want to watch this later as well, by all means, go ahead and do so. Just getting my drawing tool here, and so let's get right into it. So this week, guys, if you guys are not aware, is an interesting week. Generally speaking, it's non-farm payroll week. So generally speaking, this occurs on the first of every month, the first week of every month. But unfortunately, we didn't get that last week, and that would have been really nice to kind of get through with it. But non-farm payroll week is a bit of a pain in the butt week, as I like to call it, simply because most pairs tend to consolidate 24 to 48 hours leading up into the data, simply because there's not that much money being pumped into the markets. The markets are consolidated, and a lot of institutions and funds and things of that nature are just waiting for the data to give us good indications of where they believe rates are going to be within the near term to long term as well. So with that, guys, if you're going to be trading Wednesday onwards, I would highly suggest to stay away from all dollar index pairs and probably focus on the exotics or the crosses. That's not something that I generally trade, so you best believe that I will not be in the markets post Wednesday, or at least out not taking trades. If I can get my trades into break even or risk-free, then by all means, I'll just let them fluctuate throughout the week. But we're going to see what the market gives us. And so just taking a look at the economic calendar this week, we can definitely see here that we had a bunch of, we had some U.S. news that came out, and there's definitely going to be some AUD news coming out in about 30 minutes. So maybe that's going to create an opportunity for us. We're not sure. Tomorrow, nothing crazy. Got some pound news and some AUD news. Wednesday, a little bit of U.S. dollar news, and then, of course, the normal CAD stuff. And then besides that, you guys should not be worried about Thursday and Friday, because Friday is really the main decider. So really, it's going to be a nice technical week. It should be, at least. But we do expect the market to be maybe a bit drier, simply because of what's expected at the end of the week. But taking a look at what's been going on with the dollar index and a bunch of the pairs. So we're all actually entering very critical areas. And why am I saying that? Is because we're in a lot of the spot rate pairs, we're approaching trend lines that have been holding certain structures for years or for quite a bit of time. And so especially if we take a look at the dollar index, we're at a quite an interesting point here. And this is something that I made apparent to my group chat and signals when we first got to here with this first candle near here. I was stating that, and this is all taught in the course, that if you look at the behavior of dollar when we approach the trend line or we start nearing it, we really do start to consolidate. Now, an example like this, we didn't necessarily make it there, but we can definitely see how price starts to slow down. That we can see that the sellers start to die off, or that at least they lose their strength, and we can kind of see the same things occurring as of right now. As we speak, the dollar is not in any type of long-term market. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we are at a very critical point. We're either going to see continuations of this ascending market by slowly breaking out and potentially pushes back to the upside. That might not happen for a couple of years, but we could potentially warrant that if this trend does in fact hold. Or at the same time, we could see continuation to the downside just based on how structure is looking as of right now. And why am I saying that? It's simply because we're in this current descending channel right now, okay? And we can see after, this ascending trend was broken and we started this bear market, we can see the behavior that started to form with the dollar index, which started with impulses followed by pullbacks and continuing creating these types of movements to see continuation to the downside. Now, if we look at the structure in its entirety, if you actually look at it, and let's count this as one move here, this was the first correction that occurred for continuation down. If we count that as the second movement, this is just another pullback, and this is what we saw about 6-7 weeks ago. And now we're kind of in this pullback phase as of right now, which is why I'm stating that we're in a very critical point, because we don't know which way dollar is going to move. As of right now, we can assume that we're going to receive continuation of a bear market just because of how structure is setting up and the initial impulses that were made on the daily, weekly, and monthly timeframes. But that's not to say that we can't start seeing some type of reversals just because we are nearing this ascending trend line. Now, remember, the current momentum that we are in is descending, so therefore we should expect only bearish continuation. But if we start to see a big enough and strong enough impulse received on the daily and smaller timeframes, then we can certainly say that we're going to start switching into a buyer's market. But we can't say that yet until certainly we receive a break above this descending trend line. And more importantly, not just any type of breakout, guys, but we want to see a really good impulse, right? Something like this, right? And hopefully non-farm payroll can create an opportunity like that. Simply because if we start to trickle above here and we're still not necessarily making significant movements, I would just call this another relief for another downside play, just like we were in this structure near here. Because a lot of people said back in the day, when we broke through here, that we were moving into a potential, the long-term bullish market. And that wasn't invalid, but the only thing that we had to stress was we have to look at the entire move. And we can notice that this is one straight impulse. So it's followed by, short-term relief, which is expected, which is why I'm saying once again, guys, we want to see how dollar is going to play out and how it's going to form. Because if we don't get an initial impulse to start creating the basis of the momentum followed by correctional movements to see continuation, then what we can honestly expect is another pullback for another downside play. But that's just talking more longer term. And you guys want to know what the hell is going to go on this week, where the hell the markets are going to move. And so that's what I'm here to provide with you guys. So I thought, did I get rid of that annotation? I thought I did. I know they can't annotate. Okay, so yeah. So if we take a look at where we are currently in the dollar index as of right now, we're currently definitely the buyers are holding their strength. And this is why I'm saying that is because we're definitely holding a base now, right? And so if we look at the structure right now, we are in a bullish market and we're just getting pullbacks as of right now. So if we're looking at the dollar and the daily, we are expecting continuations back to the descending trend line, potentially back to this top area of resistance. One thing to understand, guys, is that as of right now, dollar in the shorter time frames is just a ranging play. It's not trend-based with these longer time frames. I was talking about them from a longer time frame perspective, but if you want to talk about more intraday, more going to look for entries and so forth, we're literally in a range. So this and this really have no significance unless we're breaking below or above it, because if we keep this entire range, price could literally do this the entire time, and these ranges become, they don't really matter anymore. However, just looking at the smaller time frames right now, even though we're breaking out, that's not necessarily warranting a correction. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the impulse isn't there. If you notice when we move back to the initial floor there, and notice the first impulse that was created, right? Quite strong, right? And so what I would want to see here is a bigger term impulse followed by a flag, and then we can look for that sell stood up near there. If I don't get that and we don't break these lows near here, I'm going to expect continuations back to the upside. And to be completely honest, I can't tell you that we're going to break the tops or the lows as of right now, but I can tell you that we are going to range for quite some time. One thing we do not want to, cancel out just yet, guys, is that this could just be forming another correction for a downside. Even if we break above the descending trend line, just when we broke above that descending trend line near here, we were in a short-term bullish market, but you can see there was never a strong enough impulse that was made. It was just, relief, right? So that's a potential as well that could occur. If we take a look at the smaller time frames as of right now, we can definitely see that we are receiving a break within trend. But like I said, guys, it's not necessarily validated or warranted just yet. This is a short-term sell setup, and if you get that, you can try to start running it to the downside. But the moment you get to this base again, you've got to move stops to break even because it's not a sell, right? This is setting up for a short-term play, but it's not the sell back down to the downside. If you do receive breaks below this daily support and start creating lower lows, yeah, you're going to tag the lows, right? But what I'm saying initially is that this impulse right here is strong enough to have one more continuation down. But if you don't see another impulse that breaks through, followed by a correctional movement to start creating a downtrend as well, you will not get this play. But if this does happen, you will get this. Now, if you see something like this, where this plays out and this breaks and it goes, but then slowly starts to consolidate, you could expect a potential reversal back to the upside. This is very possible as well. So like I said, guys, we're in a very critical area, because if we start to break the tops near here, then dollar doesn't really give a sense of what it wants to do. But if we start to come back down to the lows near here, this is the main decider whether we continue in this bearish market, or if not, we could start seeing reversals back up. And the one last thing that could form is we do have this potential inverted head and shoulders. So if this flag pattern completes and drops, we could expect another drop, creating the right shoulder, and then also creating a bigger term flag as well as a descending trend line. So as of right now, short-term momentum is to the downside on dollar, but long-term, I'm still bear market on dollar as of right now, just because of how the weekly is setting up, guys. And this is how we were able to execute the AUD trades for the past couple of weeks, and we've been killing them, is that these are just impulses followed by pullbacks. Impulses, this is just a bigger pullback. So this could be another pullback for another downside play. That is why I'm saying, for me to honestly say that we're going to start being into a bullish market long term, we need to see an impulse above this whole area and start creating the bullish correctional movements back to the upside, or just some type of bullish pattern. But take it smaller time frames. Short-term momentum is bearish, but I can't tell you anything further until we start creating lower lows on the base. Because if you look at it, this right now can be warranted as relief if we don't break this area near here. We saw that happen with Euro many times, and so you guys can see the same exact structure near here. Once we broke the lows, we dropped. So if we break the lows here, you could expect another drop. But if you don't, you could expect consolidations back to the tops. So with that, that's going to kind of tell us what we're going to do with this, these entire structures near here, looking at dollar and assessing what could potentially happen with these other pairs, right? And so just like I said with dollar, guys, dollar's a range play as of right now, even though we are in critical areas with those trends. Same thing with euro, since of how correlated they are ranging plays as of right now. Now, one thing I do want you guys to look at here is where we are on the longer time frames, just like I showed on dollar. And so there's really two ways that this could play out, right? We could just create consolidations for drops, right, near the trends. That's a possibility there as well, which could be happening. But as of right now, we are definitely in a bullish market. And why am I saying that we're definitely in a bullish market? And the reason being is because if we take a look at the weekly's momentum and we kind of just see what it's doing, this is just deceleration right now after this initial impulse. So it's setting up for another flag, set up for another big impulse to the upside. This is possible. But that's if and only if we start creating higher highs by breaking the tops. If we start to see, euro start breaking these lows near here, first this base, and creating the impulse down, then I could say you could start targeting back to the previous monthly support around 115. But that's too tough to say as of right now. So all I can really tell you is, we made, impulse, pulled back, impulse, these smaller term flags. And if you look at it in one structure, this was the initial impulse. This is the pullback. It's another impulse for another pullback. As long as we're just not breaking that 120 handle, you're still looking for buys. Otherwise, if you get the impulse, you can start looking for sells. But like I said before, it is a ranging play as of right now. All I can tell you is if we're going to return to the tops or bottoms, if we're creating higher highs or lower lows. Now, let's take a look at the 4-hour time frame here real quick on euro to US dollar. And there's really two opportunities that could set up, right? Some people would be like, oh, we're in a bullish market, let's start looking for buys. But I would say that's incorrect for one reason. This is the initial impulse, so this just becomes relief for another downside play. Just like we saw impulse, relief, down, we can count this entire movement as relief as long as we're not breaking these tops near here. Now, if we did something like this and we broke the tops and we successfully retested and closed above, I could say that you'll get this type of movement back to the upside, and that is possible. But as structure is setting up right now, this is still looking like another flag for me for another downside play, which is why if you notice kind of where I'm looking for my entries here, both on the buys for the buys and the sells, I need to see lower lows created on this current descending trend. And if I get this type of play, I'll start targeting back down to the weekly support. And once I get to the monthly support, stops and move to break even, of course, and we'll let it run. But if we can get a strong enough impulse, maybe on the 1 hour, we can look for some type of continuation pattern to see back to the upside. So really, it's going to be based on whether we break the tops here or we start creating lower lows near here. And that's something that you guys got to be really aware of, is where you are within structure, and you have to assess, is the risk to reward worth it, right? You know, some people, this might be worth putting your stops near here and giving this a shot. That might not be worth it to some other people. So you have to assess, is this the type of trade you want to take? Like, for example, this is actually a pretty big group right now, which is really awesome. So like, I want to show you something here, guys, real quick. So if we go to my Instagram page here, and I just posted this before, right? And I was like, you know, the last couple of weeks, we've been killing it on the setups, and we haven't missed one setup at all, right? And you know, I put a post up, and I like to be transparent with you guys, like to show you what I mean. You know, we put a post up, and I said, you know, 100% accuracy and 900 plus pips from the setups, right? And someone commented, you know, where were the signals though? And why didn't I call them through the signals? And sometimes, guys, if price will move too aggressively for me to capitalize on a trade, I won't just signal it. I have to be able to see myself being able to find a proper entry. So that's why, you know, in the signals and group chat, I always send the alerts as well as the setups and so forth, so you can track what validates my trades as well, right? And so, you know, going back to my point of, you know, understanding, excuse me, guys, where you are within the market, and in addition, what types of trades you're looking for, you know, you really have to assess, is it worth it for me? And that's why, for example, yeah, I might be able to call every single setup on the dollar index, you know, certain weeks, right? Who knows how many, but let's, you know, I'm pretty probable, right? But if there's no validation for me to take the trade and it just goes, I'm not just going to take the trade, right? Just like Stephanie said, right? No if some entries. Like, here was a great example. Like, we go to pound right here, right? And I had an entry signal, I believe, right here last week. Let's see here real quick. Yeah, we can see here. So look at this, guys. I had an entry signal right here on pound last week. This was the trade right here. And you guys can see I was looking for the floors to break, and we could take it to the downside, right? If you take a look at it, there was no validation whatsoever for me to even pull the trigger. It literally broke through, and time a potential retest occurred, let's say on the 4 hour, already about 100 pips dropped to the downside. And so you could look at it on the 1 minute as well. This is where I was looking to enter, you know, within here, but this, you know, break below, break back above, break back below, that wasn't necessarily so certain for me. Now, you could have taken the break off of this, but even if you entered here, for me, that's already too extended. The movement's already happened. And so that's why, you know, going back to the euro to US dollar trade that I was going over with you guys and saying what validates these trades, you know, if we break the tops, we're going to go to the upside. If we start breaking to the downside and create, you know, continuation movements, then we could expect downside plays, right? But you have to value, is this the type of trade I want to take? And that's something that I think some of the people in my signals and group chat don't understand. It's like, okay, Albert, you're calling every single setup out there, but why are you not signaling them? And the thing that you guys have to understand is that I don't just signal every single thing out there, right? You know, I signal trades that I personally take. So, you know, those are trades that I make a living off of, that I feel comfortable taking. And even if those trades are validating themselves, sometimes they just move too aggressively for us to capitalize on. And that's why I send the alerts and stuff like that as well. And that's why going over this, guys, you know, it's valuing, you know, if a movement happens like this and it's breaking above, you know, are you comfortable entering here and only having a take profit to there? Or did you want the entry down here so you could have a big enough, you know, risk to reward ratio? So that's why I'm going over that example. But sorry for going on a little tangent on that, guys. So just to go back on euro, either we're still, in my opinion, we're still in a seller's market. This is all relief for another downside play. If we start breaking to the downside here, look for a small flag setup, start running it to the downside. If you receive a strong enough impulse above the highs, look for a small type of retest or flag, start looking to run it back up. Just remember, guys, we are in consolidation. So we are literally just targeting the lows and the highs right now until you receive a daily break below or above. USD CAD. We're looking for buys right now, but guys, we are in a very critical area here. If you look at where we are within structure, we're at the monthly descending trend line as of right now. And so as of right now, if we don't receive a monthly break above this, it's still a sell for me. And why am I saying that? Just notice the movements. This is an impulse followed by a pullback. This is another impulse followed by another relief. So as long as we don't create higher highs, you're still expecting one more leg down, right? But if we start breaking above the monthly resistance, yeah, you could start looking for a buy back to these tops and maybe even these tops near there. That trade is very possible, but that just depends how the month closes as of right now. So all I can say to you is that this is consolidation and relief after this impulse right here. We didn't necessarily get a nice trending movement, but it was more of a consolidated range play. Now, if we do break the tops, expect a big buy to the upside. But once again, guys, as of right now, this is not something that I'm so favored to trade in for two reasons. This is so extended to the upside, and I want a pullback a minimum to here so I can start taking it back to the upside. But if it still continues to do this, I don't know if I would necessarily take it, and I'll go over reasons why, guys. But if we just look at structure right now here on the daily, we can definitely see that we broke above, this, in a sense, range. Sorry, that's really not neat. We were in this range that we were in, and so we're finally receiving breaks above. And so if we look at it from a weekly time frame, the question is, where should we go, right? And so is this the current weekly candle? Yeah, I believe it is. So if we, in fact, close above here, expect maybe one pullback the following week, and you can really start targeting these bigger term plays to the upside if we do, in fact, start holding above these previous areas. But be careful, because we do break above and below the weekly, the monthly descending trend line as we've seen here before. But right now, definitely bullish on this pair. If we take it to the 4-hour time frame, like I said, guys, I want a personal pullback just like every movement has. If you notice this, and the CAD has been really messing with me, guys, because I've been trying to capitalize on these trades for the longest time, but every time I look for an entry, this thing just goes. And so, unfortunately, I was unable to personally capitalize on them, but that's why we got the alerts and the setup sent there. And so let's look at this real quick, guys. Notice the structure in a smaller term, and then notice it in a bigger term. Notice how it starts off. And this is what I mean about the initial impulse and switching direction. If this was our descending trend line, let's say, just for example, notice how strong of an impulse it creates to warrant the shift within momentum. It's not just trickling for another downside play, right? And you can see here that once we, in fact, broke the tops here, that was no longer relief, and this actually warranted the shift of the momentum from descending to ascending. So that's why I want to say, guys, if we take a look at it from a smaller time frame, just smaller movements, and then we'll look at it from a bigger movement perspective, notice this. Makes an impulse followed by a pullback or a flag, another impulse, pullback, and then we start to trickle, and we called this sell play because it was just too much exhaustion. And so when someone sees this, they're like, oh, we're in a bearish market. But notice what happened here, guys. We never got any type of continuation pattern for another downside play, and rather it just started to exhaust and continue back up. And people were like, well, why did it continue back up? Well, let's notice the first initial impulse. What if you counted this as one movement? Then this is needed. And why is that needed? It's needed because people need to liquidate their positions. They need to take profits, so a pullback is going to happen. If and only if we could definitely close this previous handle near there, then and only then I would say you could start targeting back to the downside. But the one thing is, and yes, it might have broken retest and whatever it is, but first off, the daily didn't break the lows. And secondly, it never created somewhat of a continuation pattern. It just started exhausting, right? And created some type of pendant here, and then we saw a breakout to the upside, right? For me to say that we're going to see a seller's market, I would need to see an impulse followed by a pullback, and I could have saw that. But I never received that. And so what it told me was that this whole downward movement was just relief after this initial impulse here. So that's why I'm saying now let's look at the entire structure as how it is. This is the impulse. So this is the relief. This is the impulse, smaller term relief. If we count this as one movement, you guys should now understand why I'm saying I want to see this for that. And if I don't get this, I won't take a buy. If it continues to do this on the 1 hour and it, which is nice, it's rejecting a high finally, but if, it breaks, retests, etc., I don't know if I would take that just because of how extended the whole move is. That maybe potentially be too high risk of a trade for me to take. And like I said, if I could see this, then I would take this to the upside. Now, some people are going to say, well, what about the sell? Well, there's no way in hell I would sell this until I literally saw that. And you guys would be like, wow, such a big movement. But notice what warranted the shift in this direction. Notice how big the initial push was. So I want to see that to see some type of flag for another downside, just like this created flag for the upside. Same concept, right? So I need that initial impulse to be created before I can take any types of sells, which is why you can see my entry point is way below here, because that's going to warrant a lower low being created on the CAD right now. And that's, in a sense, where the last daily support was somewhat found. Not necessarily really created, but technically speaking, that's where it is. And so if we look at structure, we're still looking for another pullback, for another bullish movement to the upside. This is very possible as well. Just by looking at the structure, there's no signs of relief. You might get small pullbacks. But if you start breaking this area here, that's going to warrant a deeper correction down. I really hope we get this trade. I would love that. But once again, this might honestly take until next week. But we are in NFP week once again, so anything can happen. But short-term, short-term indecisive on CAD right now, but long-term bullish, unless we don't hold that monthly trend line. Yen, guys, probably my favorite play of the week, and I'll go over the reasons why. So the yen, guys, since 2017, we've been in nice little range, right? And so that's what I was telling you guys about on the euro as well. We were kind of in the same similar situation, right? Euro has this descending trend line and this ascending trend line as well, right? And so that's what I was saying. I was like, these trends mean nothing until we break below the ranges or above the ranges. And you can see here that we were in this range for about a year and a half now, and we're finally breaking below. And the beautiful thing, guys, is this, and this is what you guys want to see. We're going to target these lows, and that's the exciting thing, is that we were impulsed. This was the pullback. We received another impulse, and we successfully 2 weeks ago retested that level / zone, whatever you want to call it, and successfully closed below, followed by last week basically engulfing the entire movement, telling us that, you know what, we're going to see continuation to the downside. That is awesome the way it's setting up for us. So that's really exciting, and we're finally out of this range. So we're really just looking for these bigger term sells. And so you can see where we are within structure. It's creating somewhat of a similar formation. And notice this, guys. Impulse, pullback, impulse, pullback, impulse. This is just a bigger pullback for another downside play. And I'm not looking for a buy, guys, until we break the tops here. And not even we break the tops, we got to see an impulse, right? Just like, you know, when we broke this entire consolidation range back in the day and we were shorting this, notice how strong the initial impulses are, followed by a continuation pattern. Same thing here. For me to take a buy, I got to see that, a little pullback, and then that, and then, you know, I'll say, you know, run it all the way to the tops, run it to 118. But until we get there, still looking for sells. And so any type of short-term bullish momentum you see, if you take those trades, you better move your stops to break even, because you know the longer-term plays to the downside right now, unless we start breaking the 108 handle. And so yen is setting up beautifully for us, because it is creating a beautiful continuation pattern, flag, whatever you want to call it, and we can see we received the impulse, and now we're just receiving pullbacks. So if you guys took this trade or you're in that buy, whatever it is, move your stops as quick as you possibly can, because you know you're targeting for another downside play. And this was really nice to see play out last week. Unfortunately, once again, we weren't able to capitalize on it, or I personally wasn't. And this, I was watching this on Friday, guys. I was watching this on the 1 hour. I was going to get this short-term sell play. Once again, moved way too aggressively, and I don't enter in the minutes chart, so I wasn't able to capitalize on it. But notice this. We have an impulse followed by a pullback, another drop. So we're just getting the same thing now. And we actually broke out of this continuation pattern. And so now we're just looking for continuations down. We might be in a similar situation like this, which I wouldn't expect if we start, you know, just impulsing just like we did here. Because you can kind of see the nature of the pattern. Notice this, huge impulse. We create a pretty big correction. Then we drop, and let's count this as a whole relief. Notice what happens when you break the entire relief and base. We just drop, drop, drop. And so notice the same thing. Watch, I'm going to mark the numbers with this. Watch this. So let's count this as 0, guys. So that's 0. This whole movement was, let's call it 0. And then this was the drop that was part of 0, right? So notice this. Let's count this as 1. Then after we break that, let's count this whole movement as 1. And so now we're in the same movement as the initial one, right? See, I love when people make trading so difficult. It's just a game of patterns, and that's it. And so that's why I'm saying, guys, I'm not looking for buys unless I receive a strong enough impulse to the upside. If you guys are taking buys down here, I'm just telling you right now, I really hope you're moving your stops to break even, because that's a very risk-exposed trade. But besides that, this is looking for a really awesome sell setup to the downside. So the moment this trend line breaks, we can start looking for those sell setups to the downside. But until then, guys, we're going to be waiting patiently on our hands, sitting on our hands until that happens. And even if we break, the tops here, not taking the buy, I don't care. I don't want this, right? Why, guys? Because this could literally just be another relief for another downside play. You want those free-flowing trades. You want trades like these. How do you get those? Make sure you're not entering in critical areas. If you're creating higher highs, you're going to see continuations. But if you're trading in this mess right here, you're trading in the wrong direction, you're going to have a headache, right? So short-term sell, long-term and short-term right now looking for sells. No bias has changed on that. AU, this was an awesome trade that we were able to execute, guys. And, I personally closed this, but, I hope a lot of you guys were able to capitalize on this, because it was the same trade. Impulse, pullback, and this is the weekly time frame, by the way, followed by continuation. Impulse, pullback, followed by continuation. So look at 0 and look at 1. They're the exact same thing, right? And so this was really beautiful to see. And something that I'm going to upload in the full volume training course for my students who are here is just about the, what warrants the initial impulse. And so just a quick little sneak peek for you guys. I'll teach you, we don't trade this. We don't trade this. We want this to happen. That's our impulse. We'll get a little bit of this, and then eventually we'll take the pullback. We won't take the trade as the pullback. We'll let the pullback happen, and we get the continuation. So we want the impulse to happen. We'll take the continuation of it for as long as we can until we get stopped out, and then we wait for relief to see continuation down. And that's exactly what happened last week. And we've been selling this thing for the last 3 weeks now, right? We sold, after this daily candle happened, we sold this movement down here. We waited for this to happen, and we got this entire movement. Was it this movement? Yeah, or is this one of the other last week, but we got the last downside play to the downside. So it's the same concept. And so what we're looking to do is run it one more to the downside. But once again, guys, as I was mentioning before, you guys have to warrant where you are within structure. And this might not be the best risk to reward ratio, because we got about what? Even if we break this trend line, enter where I trade, maybe another 100, 125 pips to the downside, right? So, you guys have to stress that if you got 125 pips there, the safety pips, you got 50, 60, right? And I don't know if that's necessarily something of your favor, but if that's intriguing to you, by all means, go ahead and, take that trade. So if we take a look at the smaller time frames right now, just like Stephanie said, shout out to Stephanie, who's part of my full volume training course. And hopefully I see you at the live training at 7, right? Yeah. So she's absolutely right. If you guys read the group chat, read the chat room, Stephanie was stating that, AU has just been in a beautiful behavior. And so we can look at it in 2 different ways. You've had these small term flag setups every single time, right? In addition, you have this just bigger term impulse, and you can count that as the entire correction as well. And within this little ascending here, this was creating small term flag setups in the 1 hour. And on top of that, it was creating smaller term impulses. So this has been beautiful to play if you've been selling it. This has been awesome. It's just been paying out. Hopefully you haven't been missing on this. And so this is the same thing, right? So you guys can get this once you guys break the lows here. And you guys get to here, stop should break even and let it ride. Stop should be above the highs and give it a shot. Like I said, only looking for buys if we make the strong enough impulse there. Before I even consider a buy, that needs to be received, followed by this. If it just keeps going like that, I won't take it. It's too extended and the risk is too high that's exposed to me. But so right now we're looking for continuations to the downside, and we're probably going to target the weekly support, even that overall weekly ascending trend line. And so hopefully we don't put ourselves in the same similar position as we did in the beginning of at the end of last year when we were in the AU buy here and didn't hold to the top. So we've been in the AU sell, and we've been selling this ever since. So if we get down here and we don't somehow validate a buy, then that would suck if the same thing happens. But one thing I want you guys to notice once again is the initial impulse. Look how strong. So if we keep going and we keep selling these and we start to consolidate like we did here, and eventually we make an impulse like this, just like this, then you can say look for the buys, just like a correctional movement back to the upside. So that's what you would look for, right? That same thing that happened here has to happen here for the buy. If not, you're only looking for sells. GU, beautiful, beautiful play once again, guys. You're still looking for continuations to the downside, and even long term, you're looking for continuations to the downside. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we're just in a massive flag. And so if you look at it, there's two different ways that you guys want to approach GU. You're in a short-term sell right now, but a longer-term buy. And why am I saying that? Is because, yes, we are in a bear market, so you should be looking for sells. This was the sell setup that we missed last week, and this was just all relief after this initial impulse. And people are always like, well, Albert, how do you know that's relief? You know, we broke out of the trend line. We should be looking for buys, right? Yeah, you're correct, but you have to warrant, you know, how structure moves. And notice this. This created a relief after this initial impulse, which is understandable. But then people would be like, well, what about this impulse, Albert? And I'd be like, yeah, that would tell me that we're going to start switching momentum. But notice how it never broke above the small-term descending trend line that it was, you know, that was creating the relief. And that actually ended up causing structure to break down. And then once we legged up one more time, created a lower high and told us that we're still continuing in a bear market. So the impulse was made initially, but we never saw continuations of it, which caused for continuations to the downside. But you guys would say, how do you know you're in a long-term bullish market still? And this is why I'm saying it. Notice the entire structure, okay? Why is this happening? Well, what caused this to happen? Notice the initial impulse. So this just becomes short-term relief for another leg to the upside. The only way it doesn't become short-term relief is if we clearly crack below, you know, the 13765 handle or the weekly support, right? If you see this start to complete itself, hold it. You're going to get that trade. But once you get to the lows, of course, stops are moved to break even and reduce the risks associated to yourself. But that's why I'm saying we're in a critical area here on the pound right now, because there's really two ways this could play out. We're either going to see continuations of this impulse, whether it all comes all the way to the trend and drops, or it simply just, you know, reliefs a little bit more, and then eventually that trade happens. Or this trade will break out but hold the basis and then start to rally to the upside because of this initial relief that was received near here. This is really the critical point near here that you guys should really worry about. So if you guys can get this trade, starts breaking, once you start getting here, move your stops, move your stops, move your stops, right? If you can get this trade, move your stops, move your stops, move your stops. But if it starts to break to the downside here, you have to warrant once again, is that the type of trade I want? Is that, you know, is that the risk to reward ratio that I'm looking for? And so going back into pound and just looking at it on a daily time frame, you know, I could tell you that we're looking for buys still because this is just a lot of relief after all of this impulse near here. But I could also see a sell setup if this pattern completes, and we could target that. And even if we target the ascending trend, guys, you could still look for buys because this could just be another relief for another upside play. You're really not in a bear market till you see that. And everyone be like, oh, you're crazy to say that, Albert. Well, I'm not really, because you look at the nature of the pound. Notice how it creates its direction. Straight shots down, right? Straight shots followed by relief, followed by another straight shot down, right? So that's why I'm saying for us to say we're going to bear market, I need to see another straight shot down just like we've seen here. Straight shot, straight shot, straight shot. When we look at this in one movement, we're literally just in a relieving phase right now off of this initial impulse here. So we're still targeting the lows unless I saw something like that. Then I would say, yeah, start looking for the buys. But going back to pound, you're looking for sells still, but just note the 13765 is a critical area, and buys are only above the tops if we start creating higher highs and start creating continuation patterns. Last but not least, and then I'll take any of your questions, guys, is New Zealand. And New Zealand's been one of probably the most boring pairs, but it's just like EU. It's in a range right now, and so there's really no direction. You know, you could really just target the lows or the highs. It's not necessarily a trending play. And we take a look at the weekly time frame, and so it seems like NU is showing some signs of relief, not necessarily a bear market just yet, because notice when we break out, notice how strong the initial impulse is, followed by the continuation pattern or flag back to the downside. So we could say the same thing with this. It could just be creating relief for another leg to the upside. That's possible. We don't know yet until we break the lows or the highs. And even if we break the lows, it depends how we break the lows. If we did one of these, then I could say look for this and then target the trend again. But if we don't get a strong enough impulse, I would say that this is just relief then and look for another push to the upside. So my bias is a bit neutral on New Zealand as of right now. But all I could tell you is that you should be looking for continued sells because that's the type of momentum we're in. And you can see the behavior has been break, relief and pullback for another continuation trade. And you even have smaller term trades like this one. And now we're just in a bigger term correction near here. The sell is not really validated until we create lower lows, and the buy is not validated until we create higher highs. Regardless, you're in a ranging play and you don't want to sit in that. People would say, well, we broke trend and we're breaking the level. Can I take this trade? You can. Just know that you take profits very short term because you have to move stops once you get here because you don't know if this creates a triple bottom and then reverses or if it's going to break below. When you have that type of uncertainty, you always reduce the risk that's associated to you. But that's what I want to review in reference to the setups, guys, and where I believe price is going to go. So just to conclude before I go to your questions and answers, EU right now is still looking for sells because of this initial impulse. Unless we break the highs here, then you can start looking for buys to the upside. Next pair was CAD. Like you guys know, I want pullbacks on CAD, and if I don't get a pullback, then I won't take the trade. And if it keeps going like this, then that's too high risk exposed. Sells are not really warranted until we're creating real lower lows and a strong enough impulse is created, followed by a continuation pattern to see downside momentum. Yen, everybody should be targeting yen. You're just looking for another sell setup. We, in fact, retested successfully the weekly support / weekly, the really strong weekly supply or demand zone, however you want to label it. And so now we're just looking for continuations after all of the relief. This is just a big console play right now, but we are breaking down and creating lower lows. So that is what you're looking for. Just look for continuations of that. AUD, same thing. You're just looking for continuations to the downside. And if you don't get that trade, you want higher highs to be created and you can start taking it up. Pound, same thing, continuations to the downside. But just remember, you do have this initial impulse here. So it is a possibility this is all relief for one more leg to the upside. So really, you want to see how this plays out, but still target the sells for now. And NU, be very careful. If you want to take sells, lower lows need to be created. And if not, the buys are going to be above the previous highs to create higher highs and warrant a shift within momentum. So with that, guys, that's going to conclude the weekly market outlook in reference to the setups and things of what I'm looking for, what type of trades I'm going for. And now this will begin the Q&A section of the webinar. And so how I like to do this, guys, is I like to answer any questions that you guys leave in the group chat, or on top of that, if you guys want to unmute your mic, or if you guys want to share your screen and try to show me something, I can certainly do that as well. So let's get right into it. And so just reading some of the messages here. Thank you so much, Anthony. Shout out to Stephanie. Anthony S. asked, were those your current entries on Euro USD? Which entries were you discussing about, Anthony? And then I also reviewed AU and EU for you, Anthony. And then one just asked, Albert, some traders recommend not to enter new trades on Mondays. Would you agree? So the one thing you'll learn, guys, is that there isn't one correct way to trade in the end of the day, and people make hundreds of millions, billions of dollars trading a bunch of different strategies in the end of the day. Some people would say, don't trade, Mondays, don't trade Sundays, don't trade Fridays. In the end of the day, it's really up to what your trading strategy calls for. And so, generally speaking, I don't like to enter on Monday or Sunday, and that's just due to the fact that liquidity and volatility are dead, and I want to see some money pumped into the market before I decide to take any trades. But look, if a sell setup or a buy setup's there on a Sunday night and there's no data coming out, there's no reason why I shouldn't put myself give myself the opportunity to capitalize on that trade, right? So it really just depends on how the setup is taking place. But if your strategy calls for, something else, then by all means. So I hope I was able to answer that. Nassim, I will certainly check my DMs. Oh, you didn't receive the email about the training? I'll send that over, big guy. Apologies about that. Yeah, apologies if anyone sent me an Instagram message or Telegram message today. I've been a bit delayed with everything, so I've just recently got the signals. Just got the setups, the alerts. That was all set out during the webinar now, and then I'm also doing a live training session with my one-on-one students. I'm not my full volume training course students at 7. So all messages will have responses to by the end of the night, guys. So apologies about that. Someone asked, how do you view price action, or what do you use to create a sense of where the market is going? So great question. So I actually use trends. Trends, in a sense, give me a sense of where the market is going, but a trend doesn't necessarily dictate the overall direction. You have to look at it from a bigger picture perspective. And what I mean by that is, it all comes down to how your trading strategy is and so forth. Like, for example, if we were on the weekly time frame and, people would be like pounds in a bullish market, and they're not incorrect. And then, you go to the daily and it's like pounds in a bearish market, short term, but bullish market, long term. But then what if I told you pounds actually in a long-term bearish market? And you would say, well, how do you know that? And I'd say, just look at how the structure plays out. We see these huge impulses followed by these profit takings, and liquidations, followed by continuations of those huge impulses, right? Impulse, pullback, impulse, pullback, impulse, pullback. And then if you count this as one movement, this is just one relief. So the question becomes, you asked, how do I get a sense of the direction? I generally trade on the current momentum, right? What the daily is telling me, where the daily trend is. Those are the types of trades that I'm looking for. But I am also taking into account where the overall direction is. So I have a good sense of, okay, if I take this short-term sell, how much do I have to go until I enter a critical area where it might reverse back into the other direction, because there might be a longer-term play. For example, here, right? Like, this is what we were saying on NU right now, right? You go to NU on the 4-hour, and you can take, you should be looking for sells. And if this breaks out, if you take this trade, it's not incorrect if you take that, but just know that if you don't break the lows, because we are in a range, you could expect a potential consolidation. And if that happens, if an impulse occurs, you might expect a shift within momentum. So, it really just depends on how you approach your trades. But I assess mine from the current, and then I'll also factor in the longer time frame structure as well. And then you asked, what markups do you use to advise you the market will continue or reverse? So, I'm using trends, fibs, patterns, no indicators, just all price action in the end of the day. But like, for me to give a really in-depth answer, it would be tough to say, because I go real full in detail in my training course. If you're interested in learning, or I don't, my training course explains all of it. But to give a real brief summary on it, I'm using the trends to dictate my current, long-term, and so forth. But I am just looking at the general movements of price and what they're doing. So let me know if I was able to answer your question there. Anthony asked, how many pairs do you generally analyze to decide your watch list for the week? So being in the markets now 7.5+ years, I went through all of them, and I've just concluded that the dollar index pairs are the pairs that I generally feel the most comfortable with. And that's just due to the fact of how stable they are and how technically responsive they are. And for the most part, I'm actually trading these 4 mainly. But I will do my analysis on all 7 pairs. Simply, just to keep my I guess skills or whatever up to date, and so I'm not a little rusty, and so I'm not just looking at one pair all day. Zane asked, how do you manage the psychology of incurring losses in the short term for a long-term play? Zane, if you could elaborate a little bit on that. Are you asking, how do I manage the psychology of incurring losses while trying to weather out a trade? As in, when I'm in a trade, if I'm in a loss, how to manage it as it plays out? Or is it, how do new traders get over losses? If you could just elaborate a little bit more. Nassim asked a gold analysis. I don't have any analysis on it, but I give you a basic price action overview. And if we look at gold, let's just take a look here on the weekly. We're still in a bear market as of right now. This is just all relief. And so you can even see here that we're just creating shorter term relief right now. But if you look at gold, you're looking for continuation trades as of right now. You can just see the behavior as impulse pullback, impulse pullback. So, but if you don't break these lows, then it could become a range play. You guys should be able to all hear me. Apologies about that. But there's really two ways in the sim. Either we're going to break the lows or we're going to break the highs. But if we break the lows, then this impulse becomes invalidated, and you can look for that continued sell setup, which creates that whole market. But if not, then this just becomes another correctional movement or continuation pattern to the upside. So one way or the other on that. Thank you, Greg. Oh, shout out to Tyler over here. I don't know Tyler's in this. Is he still in this? You still in this, Tyler? Yeah, I muted your mic. You should be able to hear. Maybe he's not listening now, but or maybe maybe he can't talk, but
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up? But if you guys don't know, Tyler over here is someone who helps me regularly with this webinar, and I didn't know he would have been available today. I would have asked you to come and help, but
hey man, I'm always here.
I know, but yeah, guys, you guys should go follow him on Instagram, Top Tier FX. Really, really good insight, and need a lot more people like him just showing transparency and just true ways to becoming successful in this game. So definitely go give him a follow. And yeah, let's see here. I'm just reading this. This is very insightful, amazing webinar. Thank you. Is there a midweek webinar coming? This is absolutely good. Thank you so much, Anthony. There is no midweek webinar. Reason being is because a lot of the movements have already occurred. I like to do the webinars in the beginning of the week, just to kind of give you guys an overview of what's going on. But I'll definitely look at my schedule to see if I could find more midweek, if we could do midweek webinars and so forth. But I really appreciate it, guys. And so if you guys have any additional questions, please go ahead and ask. If not, if Mr. Tyler's up to it, do you want to share some setups and trades that you're looking to take? If you have any.
I would, but I still got some fine tuning I gotta do on them.
All right, fair enough. But I was very surprised with how many people came in today, which is awesome. So
yeah, that's because I'm not here.
No, I know, right? No, please stop. But Jason's got a question, so let's see here. Where's Jason? What's up, Jason? I muted your mic. Jason's one of my students.
Shit. Hello.
Hello?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Shit. I'm sorry. Nice to see you, sir.
How's everything going?
Yeah, everything's doing great. I woke up really early for this webinar.
What
like
time
6 a.m. here.
Oh, wow. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyway, my question was, regarding the fibs, like, let's say you're on the 4 hour on. Oh yeah. How about I forgot what pair because I'm on my phone. But let's say the trend is going down, and and you want to put in more so on a downtrend you're gonna put a.
So are you asking Jason,
right?
like, you want to put smaller term fibs within the bigger term fibs?
Oh no, because the problem, my question is, like, how do you fuck, I forgot my question.
Like, how do I assess my fibs?
Like, let's say it's going down still, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's no past movement to
Well, you want to find, remember, we're always basing our fibs off of previous structure. So, this is going down, right?
Yeah.
Where was the last ascending that created it? And there's two ways you could actually warrant it. You could either draw your fibs from the top here down, because this was the last ascending that created this whole bearish market.
Yeah.
Right? Or, because there's really two ways you could approach it, or you could draw your fibs because we are in a range. You could draw them from the top to the downside here. Or, right, you could draw them from, really just looking for the last ascending trend that created the current bear market that we're in this example here. But like if price is just going down like that, then you would have pulled your fibs from here down because this was the last ascending that creates the descent.
Okay. Like let's say on that weekly support level, right? Resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it goes even further down. So there's like it's below that floor over there.
If it would
And
continue to push to the downside and I had these fibs
yeah.
already here, I would just pull my fibs. Let's say it does all the way this and then starts breaking out, right?
Yeah.
Let's say it just goes. I would pull my fibs. I would have these longer time frame fibs here, and I'd also pull fibs from the top from this last ascending movement here as well.
Oh, okay.
Like you
So
look at this, like for example, let's say we had this movement here, right? And you wanted shorter term fibs, so I would just do something like that, and then I'd maybe mark them like a different color or whatever it is. And these, I would just call these my shorter term fibs, and then the pinks stand for my longer term. You know what I mean? And that would have been for this movement here, the purple fibs.
okay, got it.
Does that make
Where
sense?
do you generally do your longer time fibs?
On the daily. Everything's drawn from the daily. All the fibs and so forth. And you can see these fibs are drawn from, where did I get these fibs from? I think I got them from the top. No, we're still in the bear market. My bad. I got these fibs from down here, right? Those are the retracements there. The CAD ones, I have my extensions going from the low to the high here because this is the last descending that created this ascending. So everything's done on the daily.
Okay, daily, sir. Thank you for that.
Yeah, always. And then Nassim had a question. What's up, Nassim?
What's up, man?
How's everything?
I'm doing good. What about you?
Doing well, thank you.
All right. Well, I'll try to be fast. Basically, let's stay on the UJ chart since we were looking at it right before. I just need like some more because I work with examples personally. So I would like an example of what would be like the how can I say that in English? The cause of your entry for a short on UJ right now. You know, let's say this week or next week.
For me to take a sell on UJ, so you can see I marked two different areas of entry, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first one is based off of, and I wouldn't necessarily enter off of here, but this is what I would need to see. If price doesn't move anymore, and let's say it stops here, and it breaks, goes, etc., right? Mm-hmm. Let's say, I'll try to get the arrows for you. So let's say it breaks out, it retests. Let's say there was a level here, right? And it retests the level and the trend, right? And close below. I'll pull my entry here. Once I get to this level, stops to be moved to break even, and then keep moving stops as I keep hitting my levels. Now, let's say, for example, that setup never, let's say that setup never happened and I never got that trade and we saw just continuations of that bullish momentum, then I would just look to take a higher sell setup. The first thing that needs to happen, just to answer this, is that needs to break.
Okay.
That's got to break. But the break doesn't validate anything. The breakout is just a mere indication that we're receiving continuation of that momentum. Because we could break, and we could break right back above. That's why I'm saying it's just a mere indication. But any sell on UJ, first this trend's got to break, and then I want to see some type of level that was broken as well. And then I want to see a retest or some sort, and then I can see continuations down. Let's say the trade never broke here, right? And it was just in this. I would need to see lower lows being created, and these are the last lows here.
And then your target would have been, I guess, to the previous, I don't know, like to the fib levels, I guess.
I would have found previous levels to start moving stops and so forth. But I'm going to be honest with every single person that's on here. This is a free-flowing, excuse my language, and I'm not going to curse, but this is a free-flowing trade. Like, we're dropping. We'll drop to here. This has got 400 or 500 pips in it.
I was gonna ask for the longer time frame, for this move particularly, the free falling one, like you just said. What would be like?
I'll tell you why it's a big sell. Sorry, go ahead, Nassim.
I was just gonna ask what are you waiting for for my English. What are you waiting for to happen to enter in the long term short trade?
I mean, if I can get a trade this week and I can move it to break even, I'll run my trade through NFP and I'll just give it a shot. If I get stopped out at break even, no harm, no foul, because I didn't lose anything. But let's say, for example, I get in a UJ trade and I somehow get stopped out at break even, or I just get stopped out, or I feel like the trade doesn't have any more to move, I'll close it and let NFP play out. But like the most beautiful scenario would be like that sell setup I showed you on the 4 hour, 1 hour, move stops to break even and let it run. Just
to
let
the first one? The first one
what?
or the second one? The first break even or the second one?
So like I was saying here, the sell setup's gonna be initiated the moment that trend is broken. I won't take the trade, but I'll start looking for the setups.
Okay.
But a lot of people were calling buys on UJ for the longest time. And I understand why, because you have to look at the structure like this. This was the initial impulse. So we started creating small term pullbacks. But the moment we started creating this impulse, then people started saying, okay, look, we broke out of the descending momentum and we created a strong enough impulse. This is all relief. And I agreed with everyone. This was all relief. But the moment we broke through and created a lower low right there, this initial impulse it's not validated anymore. Right? Because
and we tested the
right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I was an idiot 2 weeks ago not to take the trade, but this is a perfect retest of that whole floor that was broken. And then we engulfed the next week, which is why I'm saying you just want any sell setup you can get, take it.
All right.
Right.
So you're just waiting for a better entry to enter the long term.
Right. And precisely. And I was talking to some of the guys that I trade with, and I was like, when's the last time you saw a range play break out like that? And we were calling this in September, guys. Tyler, are you still here? Yeah, he's still here. But Tyler, do you remember when I said that, EU in June was going to 124? Like, well, I don't know if you were around for that, but we were calling this.
I heard you. I remember 125. You kept brave.
Yeah, I was calling this for the longest time, and I'll tell you why, guys. And I was an idiot not to hold it. But when you see long-term ranges broken out or trends that are broken out, take the trade and just hold on. Just hold on. Just like UJ. Hold the hell on. UJ's been in consolidation for a year and a half. Now it's going to make its definitive movement. And if I'm wrong, hopefully I get stopped out at break even. You know what I mean? Like, all we can do is try in the end of the day. But that's my feeling on it. So, was I able to answer your question, Nassim?
Yeah, totally. I wasn't. I was seeing the same thing. So I was just looking for further confirmation. I think the whole market is seeing the same thing. So it's probably gonna happen, in my opinion.
I hope so. Hopefully none of the bank. I bet you right now. And this was so funny. So like, we were all in this AU trade. Tyler was in the AU trade with us and everything. And the banks were in a buy. And I was like, you're wrong. You're wrong. Just not no. So I hope the banks are in a buy, because that means that we would be 2 times correct. Let's see though what they're doing. March 5th. Let's see where they targeted to, people. All right, hold on real quick. Ooh, now they're calling the sell. Look at them. There they go. Calling the sell.
103. Oh shit.
They're calling to 103.66, and they initiated. They probably got in at that week.
And that's my take profit too. So, because I was on that short.
Yeah, look. Actually, I don't know if they got. I don't know, because the bank set limit orders, but they were going to sell at 108.84. Oh, they did get entered. The banks have been in the trade since. So the banks trade is something like 108.84.
When it broke the support from the consolidation.
Yeah. And so they're in like this right now. They're targeting like 103. They'll get this. Everyone will get. If you guys can hold on, you guys will get this. But you see how big the bank stops. So it's like, I gotta find that City FX, but
the target level is because I had the difficulty last week to analyze the Citibank information. So basically, the target level is their entry, and then the reference level is their take profit or their goal, right?
Right, and then there's another City FX. I'll look for it. That one of my students sent me that actually shows the current trades that they're in.
Oh, really? Like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
official thing, official like.
yeah, like trades that they are speculating or might be in. Like, for example, like we were all in the AU sell and they called an AU buy right when we took the sell.
So that would be like if this would happen, we should like at least go to break even or close our trades, right?
I mean, not necessarily, because you have to remember we don't know how the banks are approaching the trade. Are they sizing in their position? How, they could have 1,000 pips stopped, right? We have no idea how they're approaching the market, but it just tells us that, okay, they're starting to pump money in. Why are they pumping money in?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just makes you a bit curious, just to think. But I'm going to answer some other questions if that's okay, Nassim.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Okay, appreciate it. So thank you so much, Anthony, for the kind comments. Someone named iPhone asked, what time frame do you usually set up your fibs? Daily time frame. He got that. Raymond said anything trying to say if it's making new market lows, how do you place fibs? Okay. So yeah, that was the fib question. Bobby asked, quick question, man, your weekly support, monthly resistance market. Which tool is that, please? Bobby, do you mean like how I'm writing them? So what I'm doing, actually, let me give you a blank chart. So you find levels, whatever levels that you're going to validate as your support and your resistance. And so let's say this was a resistance right here. First off, the tool will look like this, the trend line. So I'm going to the horizontal ray. Let's say this was your resistance, right? And then you can go up here, and if you click the show text button, and you can type whatever you want, right? And then make sure you click show text, and you can even save them as templates as well. And so you don't have to keep redoing them every time, and just click save as, and then you're good to go. So glad I was able to answer that, big guy. But if anybody else has any other questions, please, by all means, go ahead and ask. But it seems like this webinar time was really good for everyone because I was able to get a good amount of people in here, which was awesome. And also, guys, this is going to be recorded. So if you guys want to go back, take a look at what I was saying and some of the questions that were answered, it will be uploaded on YouTube. So I'll definitely upload that link into my group chat and signals, as well as on Instagram as well, if you guys want to replay it. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions you guys want to ask me, please, by all means, go ahead. But I think we're going to leave about 5 more minutes, and then we'll conclude today's webinar. And then to my one-on-one students who are in here, just don't forget, guys, that live training workshop starts in 50 minutes as well. So if anybody who's part of the full volume training course wants to come and work a little bit, by all means, come ahead and do so. It was a lot of fun last week. And so difference between Oanda and FXCM, nothing really. It's just how the brokerages portray their own prices. I personally like using FXCM. Some people use Oanda. I would just stay away from the IDC and some of the other ones because you'll receive a lot of gaps in them. But generally speaking, Oanda and FXCM, they match up for the most part. Ticks here and there, they might not. But yeah, that's just really the difference. But if anybody else has any other questions, please go ahead and ask. If not, I think we'll conclude this webinar. And so, but yeah, so just want to say this, guys, before you guys all run off. Thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. And I'm not, I really just honestly love and coming to talk to experienced traders or new traders or just traders in general, and just hear you guys' thoughts on the market, where you guys think things are going to go and things of that nature. So, it's really awesome. And so I want you guys to know that I'm going to do my absolute best to make these weekly. And so really when I schedule them, try to get as many people as you possibly can in here, because, the more we have, the more interactive it's going to be. And in addition, the more beneficial it is for everyone who's a part of this. So, I really appreciate everyone coming out. So thank you again. And so, so the link to the live training will be emailed 10 minutes out before we start, because I just got to schedule the Zoom meeting. But I always send the live training link about 10 minutes out before. So you'll get it via email. But once again, guys, just thank you so much. And if you guys need anything else, by all means, don't hesitate to ask. I'm always here to help. And also, in addition, literally, guys, go give my boy Tyler a follow over there. I'm going to be real with you guys. There aren't many people that are just providing insight like this, providing why to take trades, what validates them to take trades and things like that. So definitely, guys, you know, if you want to ask me questions or ask, you know, Tyler questions as well, by all means, go ahead and, you know, just ask away. You know, Tyler was somebody who took my course back in this past summer and is now looking to go full time within the next 2-3 months. So that's really exciting for him. And you guys can go and, you know, follow his journey. And that's the beautiful thing in the end of the day, guys, is you know, this game, if you stick with it and you trust the process, it will truly change your life. And if you don't want to take it from me, you can take it from, you know, Tyler. You could take it from many other people who have started Instagram accounts after taking my course because they want to, you know, blog their journey. And so, you know, definitely go give him a follow. You know, he's someone to definitely watch out for. You know, he's unbelievable with what he can do with the market. So, you know, definitely, guys, go give him a follow as well. But besides that, guys, thank you so much again for all coming out. After this is done, this is going to be immediately uploaded. And then from there, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Like I said, if you guys need anything, you guys can contact me on Instagram or on Telegram or email. But besides that, guys, once again, thank you. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful night and a wonderful week as well. So this is me signing off, guys, and I will all speak to you next week. So have a wonderful rest of the week, guys.